Hello there, this is All 24 News World News Program coming to you live from Algiers with me, Karim Fazakari. Coming up next. Pakistan former Prime Minister Imran Khan has been charged under the anti-terror law following accusations of threats to police and a judicial officer. Military training in years on Monday. Also coming up, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Moscow could do something particularly cruel in the coming days as Kiev marks 31 years of independence. You will also be following the largest freight port in the United Kingdom will go on strike for 8 days starting on Sunday. Hello again, those were today's top stories. First, in our topical news, Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan has been charged under the anti-terror law following accusations of threats to police and judicial officers. The Pakistani police charged the Prime Minister a day after the country's top media regulatory body imposed a ban on canned speeches for spreading hate speech against state institutions and officers, escalating political tensions in the country. As the allies step up their defense against the growing nuclear threat from North Korea, the United States and South Korea began their largest diplomatic impasse, may react angrily to the drills.
오늘부터 4일간 을지 연습을 실시합니다.
We're going to practice the Ulchi exercise for 4 days from today. This year, we have normalized the Ulchi training, which has been reduced in scale for the past 5 years, by turning into training based on precisely scenarioizing of the actual situations. We have integrated the Ulchi exercise with the military exercise Freedom Shield.
군사 연습인 프리덤 쉴드와 통합해서 시행하게 되었습니다.
All right, moving on now. Taiwan wants to ensure its partners have reliable supplies of semiconductors or democracy chips. President Tsai Ing-wen told the governor of the U.S. state of Indiana on Monday, saying China's
create even greater prosperity.
To Africa now, the political conflict that has gripped East Africa's economic powerhouse has intensified after veteran opposition leader Raila Odinga of Kenya filed a challenge to the results of this month's presidential election in the Supreme Court on Monday, according to his legal team, that is. And Deputy President William Ruto was declared the winner of the election last week by a narrow margin, but 4 of the 7 election commissioners disagreed, claiming that the results had not been transparently tallied.
If there will be court processes, we will engage in those and make sure that because we are Democrats and we believe in the rule of law.
In Africa still, Mali has appointed an interim prime minister to act in place of leader Tugal Mega, who was resting amid media reports that he had been hospitalized. According to a statement released by the Malian government, Colonel Abdoulaye Mega, currently government spokesman and Minister of Territorial Administration, is the new acting prime minister. Artillery shells hit Ukraine's southern city of Nikopol early Sunday, not far from the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Russia may try to do something particularly cruel. The fighting near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has spurred fears among world leaders of nuclear accident. Moving on now, the daughter of an ultranationalist Russian ideologue who advocates the Russian special military operation in Ukraine was killed in a suspected car bomb attack outside Moscow on Saturday evening. Daria Dugina, daughter of Alexander Dugin, was killed after a suspected explosive device detonated on the Toyota Land Cruiser she was traveling in. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Moscow could do something particularly cruel in the coming days as Kiev marks 31 years of independence. Ukraine's Independence Day on August 24th will also mark 6 months since Russia launched its military operations in Ukraine.
Now
there are enough reports in the media that in Mariupol the scenery is being prepared for an absolutely disgusting and absurd trial of Ukrainian defenders, of our warriors who are captives of the occupiers. No matter what the occupiers are thinking, no matter what they are planning, the reaction of our state will be absolutely clear if this despicable trial takes place, if our people are brought into a scenery in violation of all agreements, all international rules, if there is abuse. This will be the line beyond which any negotiations are impossible.
At the Army Forum 2022, Russia attracted military contractors and displayed weapons allegedly owned by Ukraine. Speaking at Army 2022, an annual military and technical forum for the Army held in numerous cities across the nation. The event featured special unit demonstrations, artillery firing drills, and a display of light and heavy weapons used by the Russian Army.
Considering the candidates which took part in the special military operation, their number has increased. People who are interested are coming here. We explain to them the procedure of joining the contract military service, criteria of selection. After that, they are sent to the training center to acquire skills necessary for participation in the special military operation.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres visited Istanbul to monitor the inspection of a Ukrainian grain shipment. Guterres praised the remarkable and inspiring operation that has seen more than 650,000 metric tons of grain and other food chips from Ukraine. Nabil Khazini.
From Ukraine's port city of Odessa, where grain exports are flowing after a nearly 6-month blockade, to the Turkish coast near Istanbul, where all grain ships heading to and leaving Ukraine are subject to security inspection. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres visited the empty Invisible 2 ship before it sails to a Ukrainian port to collect its cargo of grain for export. This comes in a context where some countries are on the brink of a food crisis and others suffer from a rising inflation. A hope for peace, he says, this coordinated work between countries can bring to the two warring sides.
I felt that this is a work of enormous importance for humanity. Now, we always believe that hope is the last thing one can lose. And obviously, I have hope that the most important value for humanity, that is peace, will also come to this part of the world.
UN Secretary General said the United Nations is working with the United States and the European Union to overcome obstacles to Russian food and fertilizers reaching world markets. He said those countries that imposed sanctions on Russia had made clear that the measures did not apply to food and fertilizers, but added there had nevertheless been a chilling effect on exports.
I can tell you that we are working hard in order, in cooperation with the US and the EU, in order to be able to make those obstacles being removed and to allow for what we consider is extremely important for the people, especially in the developing countries.
Together, Russia and Ukraine account for a large share of global grain and fertilizer exports. In late July, a deal was brokered between Kiev and Moscow, opening the door for some 25 ships carrying over 6,000 tons of grain to leave to markets around the world.
Following the breakdown of talks between the leaders of Serbia and Kosovo held in Brussels earlier this week, Belgrade threatens to intervene to protect the Kosovo Serb community if NATO does not react. Hossam Burkan.
Tensions are high in Kosovo following the collapse of political talks between Serbian and Kosovo leaders earlier this week, mediated by the European Union in Brussels. In a fiery television address Sunday, Serbia's president called on NATO to do their job in Kosovo, otherwise he will do it.
Izbjegličke kolone
There will be no refugee columns, and we will save our people from persecution if NATO doesn't want to do it, and if Kosovo forces don't want to do it.
Belgrade leaders denied whipping up tensions and emphasized that they are ready to compromise and safeguard peace.
We'll safeguard the peace. We'll fight for peace. We'll find more suggestions for compromise. We'll do anything we can do to preserve the peace. That's all what we can do.
Tensions between Serbia and Kosovo escalated last month when the Kosovo government announced that Serbian identity documents and license plates were no longer valid in Kosovo, which sparked Kosovo's Serb minority's anger.
We don't really feel entirely safe while walking the streets. We should feel safe. Because of the frequent incursions by Kosovo police, we didn't feel safe in the past as well, especially me as a younger person.
Serbia, along with its allies Russia and China, has refused to recognize Kosovo's 2008 declaration of independence. A NATO-led intervention in 1999 ended the war between Serbian forces and separatists in Kosovo and stopped Belgrade's bloody crackdown against Kosovo's majority Albanians.
To the United Kingdom now, the largest freight port in the UK will go on strike for 8 days starting from Sunday. This is the culmination of a series of protests spanning many industries to demand higher wages in the face of record inflation. Sofian Kenturi reports.
The strike scheduled to last 8 days began Sunday in the UK's largest freight port, the latest episode in a series of protest actions affecting many sectors to demand better wages in the face of record inflation. After 3 days of strikes disrupt transportation, particularly rail, Sunday's strikes will have an impact on the Felixstowe port.
It's something which has happened here at a local level, and it reflects what's happening elsewhere, because people all over the country, I think, are feeling the same way. That's why it appears to be, perhaps it appears to be coordinated, because people everywhere are feeling the same way and coming to the same conclusion. Enough is enough. We are not going to take this anymore.
This port in east of England, which handles about 4 million containers annually, has not experienced strike since 1989. In the midst of UK's cost of living crisis, 1,900 members of the United Trade Union, including crane operators, machine operators and dockers, have stopped working in order to demand pay increases. The strike could disrupt more than $800 million in trade, including clothing and electronic components, causing trade to be diverted to smaller UK ports as well as international ports, including the ones in Germany.
All right, moving on now. After Moscow's move to shut a major pipeline ramped up fears of prolonged supply halt, gas prices in European markets jumped by more than 18%, exceeding the $3,000 per 1,000 cubic meters barrier, with the highest level in 6 months. The Russian Gazprom Group announced a 3-day suspension of natural gas pumping through the Northern Torrent pipeline from the 31st of August to the 2nd of September. A new part of the grain silos damaged by the explosions that ravaged the Port of Beirut in 2020 collapses, the third incident of its kind in less than a month. This incident occurs 2 weeks after the second anniversary of the drama. The towers that collapsed were among the last silos in the northern part of the structure, most damaged by the blast. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson accused the United States on Monday of procrastinating in talks to revive a 2015 nuclear deal. Nasser Kanani said Tehran wanted a sustainable deal that would preserve its legitimate rights. The White House has said earlier in a statement that the leaders of the United States, Britain, France, and Germany discussed the ongoing negotiations over the nuclear program and the need to strengthen support for partners in the Middle East region.
The American government has not yet responded to the proposals of the European side. We cannot say that we have reached a nuclear agreement until all issues are agreed upon. If Iran needs an agreement, surely the American and European sides need an agreement more than the Iranian side.
Palestinians in the Gaza Strip are struggling for long hours without power in their homes. As a respite from the summer heat, many are heading to the beach for a brief escape from being home without electricity. Sarah Farjani.
The lights went out across the vast urban jungle of the densely populated Gaza city on a recent summer night. That is when the generators kicked in for those who can afford them. With only one power plant for 2 million people, residents in the Gaza Strip rely on expensive private generators, batteries, and ingenuity to stay cool during the summer and keep businesses afloat. Families in Gaza seek solace for the summer heat on the shore of the Mediterranean Sea.
The sea means respite to us. We have a nice time here. We breathe the air, and it's psychological comfort. We feel suffocated in the house. There is no lighting or air conditioning or any kind of entertainment.
Gaza is under Zionist Egyptian blockade and suffers from a chronic power crisis that leaves residents with only few hours of electricity a day. The government cuts electricity according to a schedule that differs across the Gaza Strip.
The electricity situation is bad. It comes for 8 hours. We use it to fill the water and to wash. Then it cuts off. Then it comes at night. And the next time, the schedule is flipped, based on a rotating schedule, where the hours of supply cuts change every day.
Gazans get power from Israel and generate about a third of their own at the territory's sole power plant in central Gaza. In the most recent conflict in early August between the Zionist army and Palestinian militants, Israel had shut the border crossing into Gaza, including for fuel needed to run the power plant. Without that fuel, the power plant shut down, adding to people's misery at the height of the summer heat in the territory. After the Egypt-brokered ceasefire ended the 3-day conflict, Gaza's sole power plant resumed operations when Israel began to reopen crossings into Gaza for humanitarian needs.
Iraqi relief workers were active on Sunday in an attempt to extract at least 6 pilgrims trapped under the rubble of a Shiite shrine, part of which collapsed during a landslide in the Karbala province. Central Iraq, 3 children have already been rescued and hospitalized and are in good condition. A political dispute between Germany and Poland has been sparked by the mass mortality of fish in a river that borders both nations. After reporting on the high levels of pesticides in the waterway, Germany was accused by Poland's environment minister of spreading fake news about the environmental catastrophe. Over 200 tons of dead fish have been found in the Oder River, and scientists are still searching for the cause of the mass die-off.
According to a German research institute, the most likely cause of the widespread fish deaths in the Oder River is a large overgrowth of toxic algae linked to industrial pollution. Authorities from Germany and Poland say they have been working flat out to determine the cause of tons of dead fish discovered in the river.
We are probably dealing with an influx of external substance that must have oxygenated this river.
Research is still needed on toxicity of the algae, and it's not clear yet whether humans and other animals could be also affected.
We suggested to the inhabitants and tourists who are staying by the Oder River or in the vicinity of the river not to enter the water, not to bathe in it.
Scientists say that such a large growth of algae requires elevated salinity levels that could be reached only through industrial pollution. If nothing was done to decrease salt levels, such toxic overgrowths could occur again during a hot, dry summer.
A violent forest fire rages in the mountains of the city of Chongqing in southwestern China. The fire broke out on Sunday. However, no casualties have been erupted or reported so far, and nearby residents have been evacuated. This worsened climate or China climate state as the country has declared for the first time drought emergency amid the intense heat wave that is hitting the country. And in a relevant matter, authorities in Portugal said they hope to bring under control a wildfire that, for the past 12 days, has scorched large swathes of pine forest in the Serra da Estrela National Park. But they warned a new heat wave is on the way. The Portuguese authorities also warned that more wildfires may take place in the next period. Thousands of Chileans have taken to the streets to express their support for the new minority-friendly constitution. People have stated that their majority must vote for the constitution, which they think will unite the people. Usamayati.
People who support and reject the new Chilean constitution that is being written gathered at different points in capital Santiago on Friday to make their points come across before the final text is submitted to referendum next September 4th.
My decision is to approve it, because this is the only opportunity the people have had to make their own Carta Magna, our constitution.
A group of relatives of people disappeared by the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet marched in front of the presidential residence to express their support to the new text. Protesters carried ethnic flags such as Wipala of the Andean peoples in support of saying yes to the new constitution.
I'm going to vote in support because this new constitution grants social rights of the people. Corruption won't be allowed, and we will have a right to education and a dignified house. And because impunity won't be allowed again, and it will make human rights to be respected.
The draft charter was drafted over the course of 1 year by 154-member Constitutional Convention. It seeks to replace the current one inherited from the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet with one that recognizes new rights and forms of national state organization. This comes at a time when dozens of protesters also gathered in the streets to express the rejection of the new constitution, which they say will separate the people instead of uniting them.
And finally in our news, the American company Apple celebrated Abdelkader Muaz, Algerian young man who exposed one of the most dangerous vulnerabilities in its security system, twice including his name in the honor list published on its website. Describing the achievement, Muad said he is proud to achieve one of his best achievements. Algerians praised what Muaz did and called on the authorities to pay more attention to his talent and nurture it to benefit the country in the future. That's all we have for now. Let's have a reminder of our top stories. Pakistani former Prime Minister Imran Khan has been charged under the anti-terror law following accusations of threats to police and a judicial officer. The United States and South Korea began their largest joint military training in years on Monday. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Moscow could do something particularly cruel in the coming days as Kiev marks 31 years of independence. And finally, the largest freight port in the United Kingdom will go on strike for 8 days. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, our program has drawn to a close. For more updates, follow us on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.